Hello and welcome to GATSBY Fridays, a show about getting the best out of a creative life from two creative directors working around the world and based in New York City.
I'm your host, Sarah Semi.
And I'm Alex Chimilio.
Today we talk about passion projects.
We discuss why we need passion projects and what they say about us.
And at the end of each episode, we make a signature cocktail to toast. Cheers to you.
So hang with us as we jumpstart our passion projects.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Alex.
And this is GATSBY Fridays.
Sarah, before we get into our conversation, let's do a check-in. How are you and what are you wearing?
I'm doing good. I wrapped up a lot of projects, so there's less stress over like getting things done.
From last week, yeah.
Yes, I mean for the last 2 months, I guess. Which also then comes with the anxiety of, where are my projects? What do I do now?
Now it flips on the other side.
Yes, so grass is always greener. But I could use a little bit of breathing room over Thanksgiving. I'm wearing, my usual skinny high-waisted denim, gray sweater, as you know, my winter uniform. But it's definitely not a warm enough sweater. But
it's wool though, right?
It is, and then I have Uniqlo heat tech stuff underneath, which is always extra. I'm still freezing. So welcome to winter in New York. And as much as we complain about the huffing and the puffing on the stairs and the heat and the steam and the masks this summer, I will take that over the freezing any day now.
You miss August.
I thrive in the summer. I'm a summer person.
Oh man.
I like easy breezy dresses, the layers and layers, and then there's the heat tech layer, and then there's a sweater layer, and then there's the puff coat layer, and then you need a scarf, and then the hat, and I don't know.
I don't miss August.
See, I'm a summer person. How are you doing, and what are you wearing?
I'm feeling good. We're doing what we're doing, and I feel positive. We're actually wearing the same color combination, actually. So twinning.
Kind of, yeah. The same range.
I'm wearing a charcoal gray turtleneck and dark wash denims. And I'm wearing Jordans. Got a compliment on them today. These are my Jordan 6s. These are the Jordans that I remember seeing the Armenian kids in grade school wearing in 93.
Okay.
And
Very
I was
specific.
like, yes, because these were the 93 ones. And I remembered they had them. I always wanted Jordan 6s.
Okay.
And way too expensive at the time.
It's all
My
relative.
mom, she was like, these are not $20. Yeah, you're not getting those. So, X amount of years later, I'm an adult. I paid way too much for them, and now I own them.
You're talking to a girl that bought a cookware, yet another piece this morning. The site crashed. I refreshed obsessively. I was late to meeting you here because I was so worried it would sell out. It's a special edition. It's a collaboration between this masa producer and the startup that's doing affordable high end cookware kind of. If it sells out, there's not going to be another batch made at least for another year. I had to have it.
I can identify.
So, yeah.
I can identify.
So, I understand. You had to have your Jordans. No judgment.
I know you don't like these in your youth questions, Sarah, but I'm going to ask anyway.
Oh, God.
Here we go. Do you think, having not fulfilled the needs of these passion projects in our youth, which leads us into the career paths that we have now in our futures?
Nah, not for me.
You didn't have this desire to be the person that you are now back then?
No, when I was in high school, I'm not the kind of artist that had a pencil and all of a sudden sat down and do a portrait review and always everyone's like, oh my God, she's so gifted. I was always creative. I always searched for the creative outlet, but I couldn't figure it out because I have to have a focus. My focus has never been drawing. And 90s in Turkey, there was no Photoshop. There was no tools for me to go past that innate hand gift. And writing is free.
Yes.
I was writing. Well, first of all, I was writing poems in science classes. I was so bored in high school. So I wrote short stories. I submitted one to a competition when I was 15. I won the first place. Like, I thought that that was going to be my, like, creative writing was going to be my outlet. My favorite classes were literature, English, and Turkish.
Mm.
And the books that we read in high school, you know, like Catcher in the Rye, like, it's mind-blowing. And we had the best teacher for that.
Did you have a desire to write a full-length novel?
Not a full-length novel. I just was interested in creative writing because it I mean, yes, a good teacher makes a huge difference. I
Of
had a
course.
really good teacher in high school for English, um, Jack Goodrow. He's actually on my Facebook.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, it's very. He left a huge impression on how I read and how I write and how I think about things. And you don't even realize it at that age, right? We just loved him because his class was fun. He was stern, like it wasn't like fun where you were just fooling around. And you learned, but even just like the way that he would like read passages from Catcher in the Rye, he would laugh out loud himself, and it's just like the energy he brought into the room, right? So the writing was what I thought like I was gonna explore in college, like, but then I also was really interested in art history because that wasn't taught in high school. As
Okay.
soon as I took it, I was like, "Oh my God, kill me now!" If I had to memorize one more name of church that like the paintings were in, kill me now. So like like the things that you think you're gonna end up in change. And again, like I'm not like naturally gifted in terms of like how my hand works,
Yes.
in a traditional sense. So like I had to explore how to create that visual outlet because I want to create visuals. And I think the bilingual thing kind of made me lose my language on both ends to become a skilled writer.
Okay. Okay.
So
But
for my childhood versus now has nothing, like the things that I explored at that age have nothing to do with what I do now.
I don't think you've lost it. I think it just evolved. I think you do the visual. You do the visual
It
work
changed form.
now, but that's still yet again. I always get back to storytelling. You're still a storyteller. You're a visual storyteller, and you're constantly moving in that direction.
That is true. I mean, that's what we're doing with the podcast.
Do you miss writing?
Sometimes. I think I got more excited about it because you write most of our stuff for the podcast. And then that makes me come in and say, well, what if we say it this way? What if we say
Of
it that way?
course,
Like
yes.
me, but if I have to start it, I'm waiting for you to write that blurb so we can
Uh,
post our post, right? Like I'm like, well, what I wrote was just so dry. Part of my correspondence, like even with clients, sometimes is just so dry that I have to send it to friends to lighten it up. Is because I think it's a second language thing, trying to be formal, like learning that formal English keeps you a little controlled. I didn't grow up with slang, so I don't have it doesn't come naturally to me to throw the casual conversation in. It's a little harder. And sometimes that makes maybe for better formal writing, and like I can fix all the grammar and the punctuation because I was graded on it so harshly. I'm really good at that, but the expressions I sometimes lose them. I'm not as casual. So from that perspective, visual came in hand. Like that's when I flourished there. I directed it there. But because the only Turkish I speak daily is 5 minutes every morning with my mom for the last 20 years, and that wasn't that often back then. Years of age every single day. So like I don't really actually practice my Turkish either. It's not like I lost it, but language is still a practice. If you're not like using it in a daily elaborate way, then you're gonna lose your skill set within it.
I wonder when you speak in Turkish, are there because there must be Turkish flourishes within the language that will butter up the language. Can those flourishes be translated in
Oh
English?
no! Oh my God! There's expressions both sides that don't translate at all.
Give me
And
one.
oh God, I don't know off the top of my head. Like I still find myself like trying to explain things. Like sometimes like the English expression is so much more accurate to describe a situation. I'm like, well, there's a saying in English, like for example, in Turkish, there's a saying like if you give your hand, you lose an arm. I don't.
This is similar.
There.
Take an inch,
Okay, so yeah, okay, so there's a
inch and a
similarity.
mile, yeah.
So if the expression in Turkish, if I give you my hand, then you'll take my arm, kind of thing, right? So then there's the inch and the mile in English, but they're not the same. But there's also different expressions that I mean, I can't think of off the top of my head now. Sometimes I find myself trying to explain it to my mom because I'm like, Mom, I'm just gonna say the words in Turkish so you understand the concept, even though it may not sit like the metaphor is not going to sit well with you because you're not familiar with it. It's going to sound silly, but it's going to explain what I'm trying to say. But that's true both
that's
ways.
Interesting.
But you grew up in a bilingual house.
I did, and once again for me, very different time growing up, and the notion of speaking English was very important and drilled into my siblings and I to not develop accents and be more acclimated into the culture. So there are not a lot of Spanish sayings that I would pull out that would translate into English.
Were you writing when you were younger?
I wasn't writing in Spanish. I was writing in English. And everything about what I was doing in English. What's interesting is that even though you find writing to be arduous now, the fact that we write every episode together gets me back into the creative aspect of writing. Because writing is a very lonely process, especially if you're writing by yourself. And I remembered early on writing scripts or writing in longhand format. And yes, I could be creative and it's wonderful, but it's just many hours of being by yourself. And more importantly, being in your own head, which is not great for me.
Yeah, no, not for me either. Is it an age thing? Okay, is that the creative curse? So maybe it's the creative soul curse. But when you were younger, but you were drawing and painting and doing.
Yeah. So I feel like there's still a similarity, even though I took the more visual approach. I mean, it's not like I was handed a pencil and then I drew and I was a young Picasso, and then that's it. And then the trajectory of my career was certain.
There are people like that.
But that wasn't me. But I could see the building blocks of early on drawing. Also, because I'm a very visual person now, and everything that informs my professional life is visual. But just like you. And just like the way you grew up, more thinking that your creative process was going to be more through writing, my creative process I already just knew was going to be visual, but I didn't know it would translate into fashion, it would translate into fine art, it would translate into podcasting.
Actually, the irony is one of my best friend in high school that was reading in the same classroom with me, Katrin Rai. She is actually a novelist now, and her second novel
and
just
those things
came out.
Happen.
Yeah. So she actually really took that trajectory to really full career. Alex, so let's get into our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Why, as creatives, with all that we do, on top of everything, we do these passion projects? Why are they important?
First, you're right. Why give ourselves the headache of doing more stuff than we need to be possibly doing? Like, it really makes no sense.
To just keep making more.
To just keep on making more projects for yourself. Like, it's, this pile. There's
I showed you the meme. That's going to go up on our Instagram.
You should put it up.
That is a definition of what we do.
Oh, so I could only speak for myself, obviously. There's always more story to tell in anything that we do. And I think you want to give yourself a project because, you start going down those rabbit holes of thinking to yourself, oh my God, this is an interesting subject matter. This is an interesting concept. I want to explore this a little bit more. But really the question is, why are they passion projects and why are they important? And I don't know, I guess I'm trying to suss out I guess we should explain what we consider passion projects.
Yeah, a passion project isn't putting up a shelf on your wall. That's a weekend project.
Yes.
That's something that needs to get done. Passion project is because you can't stop doing it. I think that's what it is. It's this like innate need that it comes out of you. And it doesn't have to be an art project per se. My passion project is cooking, I think.
Yes.
because it's still like it's the most therapeutic thing I can do, and I need to eat so I can justify the time I spend on it. Because there's more projects to be done at all times. Like that's the chicken or the egg part of the conversation, I guess. But the passion projects is like it makes you feel connected, and I don't know, I don't want to use the word worthy, but it makes you feel like you have something to say and you're saying it. And
Well, there's a bigger story to tell. I feel like, with your cooking, of course, it's life sustaining.
yeah, that's
But
just how I
you
would
really,
justify it.
you really do explore the culture of it, and you
Yes.
go down that rabbit hole of trying to figure out what these ingredients mean in the context of the culture. Because I see a lot of your cooking work, and that is a passion. But I wonder,
Well, that's the irony of it, that this we've been talking about this for a long time now, and this podcast is our somewhat of a passion project that we've been nurturing for so long and finally doing. On top of everything else, I started yet another Instagram account for my
yes,
cooking because I finally caved in. Like that, I have my only outlet of sharing the food that I do because I live alone and I eat it all by myself. Is my Cooking Baby group chat. The name of the group is Cooking Baby. With two other friends of mine, we're all like obsessed with cooking, so we send each other. But even then, there's only so much detail that I get to tell about my experience with the food and the experimentation that I've done, or things that I've learned that are like, I don't know, maybe nobody cares about it. But the putting it out onto Instagram, I finally caved in. I have like years and years of like food photos to put up there, but it's more about what you write in the captions. I think for me, for this particular project, I only have one post so far. But at Sam's that eats. But I think the part of it was no longer enough for me to just cook and take pictures of it to keep on my phone. I needed to put it out into the world.
yes.
And, yes, of course I want to get the likes and the follows, but I just needed it out in the world. And I think Instagram is almost like a small journal of that, without having to worry about building your own website and writing about it and like page layouts and clicks and all this stuff. Like it's just like one photo up, 3 words done.
And that's the difference between, because we've spoken about collections and hobbies, and sometimes these collections or hobbies don't need to be exposed to the public. So I think a passion project is something that you really want to put out into the world and have it acknowledged by a larger society or a larger group of people.
I mean, making connections with other people.
Making connections, right? Yes.
I was telling you about earlier today. I'm reading this book by Glennon Doyle, and there's a lot of things that I was so surprised to read, and it caught me by surprise. But the part that I read this morning was that people take on activism and projects through things that they feel that their experience leads them to. Sometimes it's pain, sometimes it's joy, but whatever relates to you, you go out and share with other people, and you find your people through that. It creates a community, but it also creates impact. So I'm not saying my Instagram account is going to create an impact, but it'll create some sort of connection with somebody else. Like I think that's because it touches me, because I care deeply about the food and how it's cooked and where it comes from. I think sharing that with other people are appreciated, and I'm clearly not the first one in the world with a cooking Instagram account, or the person that shares about these, or I don't presume to be a chef or anything. But just sharing that with people, I think, is what it's something else.
Should passion projects have an end point? Like, I wonder, so, if you're a writer and you're thinking about doing a novel, could be a passion project, and then there's an end goal to that. Or if you're a composer, you want to write your composition, and there's an end goal to that. Should there be an end goal to these passion projects that we take on?
It depends. I mean, my painting's also a passion project, but it's not passionate enough because I don't do it all the time, and I don't really share it. And I have no interest in posting it or selling it because I don't think, it's not as meaningful to me. I think it's just putting paint. I just like tactile things. And
well, there's your painting, and then there's your hand lettering.
Yeah, the hand lettering I put out into the world. That was a time that I was going through a hard time, and there were a lot of mantras that were passed on to me to repeat. And I was like scribbling them on the go, and then I had these like little crumpled piece of paper, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm a designer. I want to surround myself with visually beautiful things. And so I started writing them prettier and prettier. So that became a project. And then I put it out into the world. Unfortunately, work got in the way. It's up,
Yes.
but it's not maintained currently.
Do you think that
That I will get back to.
Okay.
That is not dead for me.
Okay, so the cycle is not over.
No.
For that.
But I think an ultimate goal, I think it's the dream goal, right? Like, if anything you wanted out of this world for this project, what would it be, right? Like, you want the funding to make it $1 billion, or, I don't know. For me, it's Oprah. I want Oprah to say, look at these beautiful hand lettering, like, affirmations, and here's the artist that's behind them, and here's the concept. If Oprah says your name, you've done a good job. You know that it's justified all the time, all your free time that you put into it, all the friend gatherings that you skipped or whatever. This is obviously pre-quarantine mentality, but
it's a gift and a curse, because if Oprah, just going down that avenue, if Oprah said she loved your hand lettering and this was something that, the acknowledgement is great, it could boost your business in doing this, but you do them by hand.
Well, yeah, but that means
then you'd be bombarded with orders.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
I don't know. I wonder.
I think that would be.
It would overwhelm, and then it would move from passion project to work.
So from that perspective, what would my cooking channel would end up in? I think it would. I mean, again, I wouldn't be the first person to start an Instagram account thinking that it would lead to a cookbook. I don't know. Like, I feel like I always say that. It's kind of like, what are we going to get out of this podcast? Oh, wouldn't it be amazing to have a TED Talk? Ooh, let's do it in Milan. No, let's do it in Miami and all this stuff. But, like, yeah, I would love to have a cookbook, but I'm not ready for it, and I don't know if that's the ultimate goal. If that end happens, then what then?
And then the cookbook itself would be its own, yet again, separate project.
Yes.
Then you would have to start working
so,
towards that
it's
one.
not a goal that I want, but, like, the ultimate success of a project, logically, if you follow the train of, like, developments, and, like, that's where it would lead to. I don't think that's what I want, and I have a feeling that this is what they were trying to teach at Art Center when they were saying, 5 years, find yourself. What do you think you're going to be doing in 5 years? Your job doesn't exist yet. And I was, when you're 26 and you think you know it all, and I was like, I don't know, whatever. Like, I'm going to need a job, and I'm going to need a visa. So I really don't know what they're talking about. Whatever they want to call my job title, I'll take it, kind of thing. But at the end of the day, before I started grad school, there was no iPhone. It came out halfway through, and by the time I graduated, there were jobs that didn't exist for iPhone interface design when I started school. So they already knew that clearly that's why they're teaching, and I was there to learn. But so that there's that concept of whatever this is going to end up in, I don't think it's defined yet. Maybe it's a new platform or an outlet we haven't even thought about yet, because I'm really not trying to, like, put this into a book. Or I don't want this to be a recipe blog where it's, like, indexed perfectly with tags and stuff. That's what I do for work.
Yes.
I don't want that for this.
So the passion project doesn't necessarily have to yield these types of definitive results where you have...
I don't want my living to be relying on it.
And have those hard deadlines.
That too, yes. Yeah. This is why I will never become a professional chef. I take too much joy in this to actually have deliverables that I have to live by.
Yeah.
It will ruin it for me.
It turns it into a whole other thing.
Yeah, we have enough deadlines in life. I don't need that. So, like, we've talked a lot about my passion projects. What about yours? Like, what are you working on right now that you would take to a different level, or you see a future and you're going to keep doing?
Well, I'm listening to you, and you're right. Like, I don't want to take on a project. We have work. We have our occupations that we do. We have our careers that we have to kind of adhere to. These passion projects skew to the left of that, where you really want to put your heart and soul, not that you don't want to put your heart and soul into your career, but put your heart and soul into something that really is your product that you put out into the world. And I work on a lot of different things, and I work on there was one time I worked on photography, I worked on filmmaking, I worked on even sculpture for a
I
time
mean, we did
being.
your fashion shoot last year for the brand that you wanted to start the concept.
That was something, and that was a great passion project because that was something that I took from youth all the way up until now until it became a thing, became something into the world that now speaks to what that concept was. And I think those are the types of passion
What is it
projects.
called again?
Hola Suertes. Yes, my
Talk about that.
fashion line. Yeah, it was something that I must have spoken on podcast before, but it's this concept of bringing everything that I've done in my youth and the influence of Southern California, and remembering that there was a group of BMX riders that came to my neighborhood. Now, this is me growing up in a not so nice neighborhood in Brooklyn in the 80s and seeing all these like bleach blonde Southern California guys riding BMX bikes in my neighborhood blew my mind. And that always left an indelible impression on me to take this concept of Southern California and New York and bridge it into something. At the time, I didn't know it was going to be fashion because what did I know?
Yeah.
And that's the thing about passion projects. You have to let them kind of materialize into what they will ultimately become,
But
and
it's
we
also
truly
a
don't know.
combination of work. You know, you've explored street sports before through other things.
Yes,
You painted skateboards, you've done surfing yourself. So like you explored all of those before this materialized into a fashion line.
those are all the stepping stones into something like that, and that's how I can trace it back. It's kind of like when we
But my question is going to be
yes
it materialized into a line and into a brand book,
yes.
and then that's it.
Well, then
Right?
the
Like so
quarantine. Well,
the quarantine
then the quarantine happened, and nobody was buying fashion,
that
so
is true.
that really just ended.
But
that.
your stuff is the stuff everyone's been buying. Casual shorts and comfortable, like
Well, now
lived in
it's
food,
yeah.
like live in
Everyone
clothing.
wants casual wear now,
Right.
so actually it probably would do
So
well.
you were saying that if it wasn't for the quarantine, it would have led the goal was to actually turn this into a bigger thing.
Turn it into a bigger concept. However, it will lay in the world. I mean, who knows? That's still just like your painting and your hand lettering affirmations.
Yeah.
It's still left out open ended.
Yeah, I like that it's still open ended.
Yeah.
A lot of good work went into that.
Thank you. When we get back, we'll continue our conversation. This is Gatsby Fridays.
Hello and welcome back to Gatsby Fridays. Alex, what would it look like to live your passion project?
Oh man, that would be amazing. I think ultimately we've been talking about what we want to put into the world and what it means. And I think aside from what I do as a career, the passion project is yet another side of me that I don't think a lot of people see. And I think if I had to there's no specific one passion project.
Let me give you a chicken and the egg. If you're living your passion project, is it still a passion project or does it become your career?
That's a good question. Wow. I don't ever want to use it because I never like when people say, that's a good question on a podcast or when they're being interviewed. But that is good because am I living my passion project now? And in a way, yes, because we've been talking about not only this, but like everything has led up to it. Even in my youth, when I was drawing, I never thought that I would become like this would become a career that I would be able to make money in. That's why when I asked you the question about youth, did you ever think that this would be what it is? And look, when I was younger, I was convinced I was going to be a professional BMX rider. I was going to ride for GT. I was going to travel the world, jumping ramps and hitting half pipes. That did not transpire in my life, which is probably better for my bones. But I have to say, everything else aside from that has worked out towards that direction. I mean,
when I was a kid, there was a time I thought I was going to be an anthropologist because I read a novel and I was so blown away by the idea that, you could discover things and that's like how fascinating. It's like hundreds and thousands of years. And then for a while, then I thought that I was going to be a marine biologist, and then I realized I have to actually study biology, which that didn't really sit well with me. I almost
more
failed.
science.
It's the only class that I almost failed in college, like doing my science requirements to get the liberal arts degree. So no, did not. But like my love of like the idea of like spending your life in the oceans and observing whales and dolphins and like, oh my god,
All that
like
salt water.
but like just the idea of it, like it still takes my breath away. I just understand that like I need my blow dryer. I don't need too much humidity. I would like to
a lot of weather variables you can't control,
and not study science. So from that perspective, I did not clearly the things that you think that you want to explore when you're a kid. You also like figure out your like weaknesses and strengths along the way. That's what school is for, to kind of nudge you in the right direction. Because if I did well in high school science instead of writing poems in science class, maybe I would have become a marine biologist. Who knows? I didn't. I was like, but that's the thing. I want the animals and I want to do that. But I think that where my interest in that will come into play will be in more of a passion project, where maybe there will be a moment where my art will reflect something to benefit.
Could very well.
The ocean, like, how many ocean accounts on Instagram I follow just because I love seeing all that stuff? Like,
maybe one of those things will translate. Maybe you'll do a job for the New York Aquarium. Who knows? That'd be amazing.
Like just the idea of those things is just it doesn't end there, but I think you don't lose them along the way. You just don't carve a career path out of all of them. And I think we're just luckier than most, because I think as creatives we feel so much about everything, and that needs to be put out onto paper, whether it's words or shapes or paint or whatever it is visually. And when I mean paper and pen, like it's not like literally paper and pen, but from that perspective we actually can create a career out of it. It may not be the most lucrative one,
no, but
it is a happy one.
But that's sometimes I think that is what the trade-off of a passion project is. I feel like for me, my life has been my passion project, and I'm still living it, and I'm actively doing my passion project. Is it lucrative? No, but I'm still able to do it.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for the things that we get to do for this project that we're doing, the podcast itself. Oh, who knows? So we are living our passion project in a way.
Yes, I would agree.
Now on to our favorite part of this and every episode, our signature cocktail. Alex, what are you making for us today?
So what we have, I was thinking about lightness. I was thinking about fun. And passion. Also the holidays, because I think the drink looks like Thanksgiving.
Because
well, because it's orange and red and it's bubbly, so I'm thinking like
you drop the cranberries in there.
Yeah, that's it. So
right.
So what I'm making is a peach Bellini, Gatsby style, and what you do is you get a pack of frozen peaches, cup and a half of prosecco, half a cup of freshly squeezed orange juice, and fresh cranberries. And how you put that all together is you muddle the peaches into a jar or blend it. You pour the orange juice into it, the prosecco, until it's nice and slushy, real smooth, creamy consistency. You pour the whole thing into champagne flutes, and you garnish it with fresh cranberries. It looks awesome.
Yeah, and you can watch Alex making our cocktail throughout the week on our Instagram stories, which is something new we're doing now. Thank you for hanging with us. For a list of the resources mentioned in this episode, hop on our site, GATSBYFRIDAYS.com.
You can find a peach Bellini recipe on our website, GATSBYFRIDAYS.com.
For show notes, or if you want to leave a comment, suggest a show topic, get at us on our site.
Don't forget to rate us, give us 5 stars, write a review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps to get us in front of more ears and build an audience. Or if you're a Spotify person, make sure you follow us at Gatsby Fridays.
Follow our Instagram for exclusive content, like Alex making this week's drink on our Insta stories throughout the week.
Stay with us on our next episode as we talk about how it started and how it's going.
And this is Gatsby Fridays.